So I'm a deep thinker, right? And the more I think about like what is the purpose of life, the more I get there isn't a purpose. You just have to find purpose. It's almost like someone's dumped a baby on your doorstep. What do I do with it? Well, there's only one thing you can do is nurture it, feed it, love it, give it attention. You can't
Yeah.
really do anything else. So it's like, what is the purpose of life? There is no purpose. We're just a bit of bacteria that happen to get enough sunlight and enough food to keep creating. So it's like we're here. What do we do now? Find a purpose to get you up in the morning, to get you through the day, to enjoy yourself. And then before you know it, you'll be 90, and then that's it, your time's up.
And then you're gone. And then you turn into a different type of bacteria. And then therefore, does that count as reincarnation?
Technically, yes, whether it's a cow or it's another, or it's a mosquito or a bit of bacteria, technically that is reincarnation if you do believe in
Technically,
reincarnation.
even if you blend into the soil where you're buried, that's reincarnation, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like your energy is transferred over to another energy and you just live that life again. Although I do think that it goes up in mass. If reincarnation does exist, it goes up in mass. So when you're born, you're a certain vibration. And as you go through life, you take on knowledge, your energy increases, and then you come back as something kind of around the energy when you left the earth. It has to keep going up. It can't just like space doesn't just build up and then drop. It has to go up in vibration. What would you say?
I got that. However, if it's no longer so, I have a concept, and I guess this isn't so much in terms of every element in the in the universe, but specifically about people. Your energy exists, and as we communicate about people, so let's say the more that people say our names and we acknowledge ourselves, that vibration increases because our energy is going towards the idea of that one thing or that one person. Now, hundreds of years later, when no one remembers you and no one speaks your name anymore, I feel that in those moments your vibration can lessen and therefore you can disappear.
So it's almost like you have a star and it burns out. So the energy is built up through however the star came, and then it fizzes out. So what you're saying is correct. Our spirit, our vibration that was there, made up of lots of energies. If other energies kind of on the similar frequency come in, they can take parts of that energy, and therefore that whole energy will reduce. So actually, you are, I think you're right. Energy can reduce. It's like static energy. It's almost like a Wi-Fi signal. When you turn on your Wi-Fi box, it takes a while to build up to full strength because it's been emitted by the router. And if you turn off your, say, TV or your Wi-Fi box, it takes it takes a little while for the energy to remove. Like when I turn off my TV, it's still clicking afterwards because it's cooling down. When I turn off the
Mm-hmm.
Wi-Fi, there's still a connection, and then it kind of disconnects. So you're right, it does go up and does go down.
Yeah. Well, and as it disperses into different forms, it's like 10% of my energy is going here, 10% is there, 10% is there, and then you've now contributed to so many elements that that one source it no longer exists. It still exists amongst many, however, within its static form, no longer exists.
Can you see me, by the way?
No. I mean,
Yeah.
I see you, but you're frozen.
Um, yeah, you know that's changed my opinion on that because I always thought up until now that kind of you're left with the energy you last were. So if you died at say energy number nine, then if you were to reincarnate, you come back starting at energy number nine because you'd go into the next energy of what you were vibrating at. But it's like, how long does it take for you to reincarnate? Your energy can't just sit there and be the same power. It's like if you charge your
Mhm.
iPhone and put it in the drawer and it's turned off, don't think you're going to turn it on in 5 days and it's still 100%. It loses
Right.
its energy. So energy does reduce. Hence why if you don't use your brain growing up, if you don't use your brain when you're older, you start to get dementia because your
Mhm.
brain muscles start to weaken. If you don't go to the gym frequently, all the muscles you built through gym work start to reduce. Um, yeah, I suppose it's like a baby to a mother, and then you start to mother your mother when she's really old, and the roles reverse. So we all go become a child, adult, adult, child. It's this constant. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. In the sky, right? Sometimes you see shooting stars, but they're actually satellites.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost
That's so
like,
unfortunate. I stick to telling myself that they are shooting stars. Okay, I don't care if they're actually satellites. This is where I get to make my own reality. I'm like, if I see something move in the sky, it is a shooting star.
see, I used to believe or want to believe that they were aliens, and it's almost like, if you believe in ghosts, it's not about whether ghosts are real or not. It's your own experience, feeling connected, feeling there's an afterlife, believing that your
Mm-hmm.
grandparents are looking down on you. It's your own experience on this life, and it's your own belief system. It's not about whether God's real or not. So if you look at a plane and think it's an alien, then makes you excited because, oh my God, aliens are real. That gives you like a buzz and a high. If you
Mm-hmm.
look at that satellite and you're thinking, oh my God, it's a shooting star, that makes you feel good. Like we don't know the difference between what's real or not. So it doesn't matter whether it's a shooting star, whether it's a plane, whether it was a ghost, or just simply you left the window open downstairs and the door flew open. If it gives you like
Mm-hmm.
a purpose now, go with it because all we have is feeling.
100%. And I feel that most of that joy actually comes in the imagination. So even if it was a real shooting star, you're not thinking to yourself, oh, that star is dying. You're thinking to yourself, I'm going to make a wish. So shooting stars are only exciting because there's a superstition to them. And so that same joy that you get, it all comes from your own imagination. So is it really what we're looking at that brings us joy, or is it what we make it mean that brings us joy?
I think it's both. It's like biology and physics. If you take a tablet and you believe it's not going to work, it won't. But if you believe it will work, it will. And also, if you take a fake tablet and believe it's going to work, it will. And if you believe it's not going to work, it won't. Same as like non-alcoholic drinks and alcoholic drinks, or caffeine coffee, or decaf coffee. It's both. You
Mm-hmm.
can get that feeling whether it's a natural shooting star or not. You can think it's a satellite and it is a shooting star, and you got the feeling of, oh, it's not a shooting star. I have only recently realized that, well, we see things as one, like you're one person, but it's multi-dimensional. It's two. I've realized that like the commander in chief of our whole life and our whole body is the brain. It's like you can override it's like having a board of directors. They make the decisions based on your last order, for example. So if I think I have to take a tablet for hay fever, then I believe that I'm going to sneeze if I don't, and I will if I don't take it. But, for example, the president goes to the board and says, look, this is nonsense. You're going to sneeze anyway. You don't need this tablet. You're going to be fine. Yes, boss. And then you don't take a tablet and you don't sneeze. It's almost like our bodies respond to the last programmed thought,
Mm-hmm.
and you can override it at any point. And that makes me think to myself, if I don't want to take a hay fever tablet because I believe if I believed I did, I wouldn't sneeze, and I don't, what's the point in taking it? But then it's like I know deep down that if I don't take it, I'm going to sneeze. So you kind of override your last thoughts where you. It's a really strange thing. It's like observing a particle in quantum physics. When you look at it, it knows you're looking at it. So how do you get it to know you're not looking at it when you have to look at it? It's really complicated.
I think that I think that where you would be able to develop that would be in like a dream state where your unconscious mind is actively communicating with your conscious mind to program you once you're awake and you don't know because you don't remember your dreams and yet so much was accomplished in your sleep. So there are actually many things that you can do to prep yourself before you go to bed to program your dreams to communicate what you want your unconscious mind to communicate to your conscious mind so that in the case when you wake up you don't end up going for that tablet
See
and you
that
don't care.
that is interesting because it's like if I was lucid dreaming and I was aware at that time that I was doing this, so in the afternoon I am doing this, then as soon as I become aware I'm dreaming, I wake up, right? Because when you
Mm-hmm.
become aware you're dreaming, you get excited and you wake up. But if you're not aware you're dreaming and you, as you said, program your mind to do whatever do in the night, so during the day it becomes a reality, are you still observing yourself by the fact that when you go to bed and you're not lucid dreaming that you are kind of doing something for the day afterwards? Or are
Mm-hmm.
you actually not observing yourself? Like, is it possible to observe yourself without you knowing you're observing yourself? Because
Yeah.
it does make sense. That's a good point. You can
Yeah,
do all the stuff you
that's
want to
where you
do.
don't even have to be lucid dreaming though. That's the thing. You like no matter what, your dreams are part of your life's experience. So even if you're not lucid dreaming, like even if you don't get to the point where you have that level of control, let's say, you can still plant seeds before you go to bed because your subconscious mind is always listening. So you can actually create what it is, what the intention is for you to recreate, to heal, to just become overnight. And over time, you will see it come through in your day-to-day life. So sometimes it's not necessarily getting to the point of, let's say, lucid dreaming or sleep paralysis or some of, like, let's say, the goals that you would have in going into that work. It can be like journaling the way that you journal to release, to then set intentions for your dreams. We do a lot of this work when we're awake, but we don't necessarily do a lot of this work for when we're asleep, and it's equally as powerful.
Yeah, like 85% of everything I've ever learned has been whilst I'm sleeping. So I used to play YouTube videos on autoplay all through the night, like 8 hours worth of everything you could even imagine. And I'd wake up the next day and I'd be consciously thinking about something that I don't remember learning consciously, knowing that it was
Mm-hmm.
something I listened to during the night. It could be something like quantum physics or whatever. And I'd be thinking about it. And when you think about how that's how I learnt a lot of my knowledge for the day afterwards, you think about hypnosis. A hypnotist can come into my room without me realizing, hypnotize me to say, go to the bank and take out money, or whatever, or go to see my grandma. And I'll think it's my thought, but it wasn't. It was a hypnosis thought. And then you think about, when you listen to TV before you're going to sleep, you start dreaming about the stuff you're hearing. So when you think about it like that, you're right. It is possible to change a mindset without you being aware, because yeah, what I was saying before is how can you change yourself? It all came down to the tablet placebo effect. It's like your brain can override your last thought. And it was like, how do you override the last thought? Like taking the tablet, I know damn well it doesn't work. So how do I get myself to take it? Otherwise, I'm going to sneeze because I need to believe that it's going to help me. Otherwise, I will sneeze. Um, it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
What comes to your mind right now?
Comes to my mind right now, what I'm thinking is, okay, so I was thinking of a story. Since we're talking about, let's say placebo effects, I have serious allergies, right? And I take Reactin all the time, which is like an allergy medicine. And a couple of years ago, I was like at the worst of my allergies, and I went on a trip. Actually, both my mom and I, she had serious hives from everything she ate, and I had to take Reactin every day. We went to Azores, which is like Portugal, right? And we were just vacationing, beautiful. By day two, neither of us took our allergy medicine. And we didn't really realize it until a week later when we said, oh my goodness, it's been a week and neither of us have had to take our medicine. What is going on? And then after that, neither of us had to pick up medicine ever again. I don't know if it was the vitamin D. I don't know if it was the pressure from the plane. I don't know if it was just the joy that we got from traveling together. I don't know what it was, but something shifted for the both of us to heal whatever it was that we had grown attached to in our day-to-day life.
Yeah, so I don't actually believe that allergies are real, the same as I don't believe disease is real. Like when you have the disease, you have the name of what it is, you could say that is real. That state of
Mm-hmm.
which the body's in, that is called cancer, diabetes, whatever. But it doesn't just happen like that. There's things that you would have done over your time that you don't even realize cause this because it's just part of life. You eat these foods because your parents eat this food, whatever. Everyone has 6 hours sleep in the office, so you have 6 hours sleep. But all these factors led to your body being in a state where it's basically broken. And it's the same for allergies. If you have like a bad respiratory system, then if you're in, like, say, a dusty place, whatever, you're going to struggle. But if you live by the ocean in nature, you'll have pure oxygen. And it's the same with glasses. I know many stories of people going to the Specsavers, whatever, to get glasses because, let's just say, their eyes were really shitty at that point. They don't think about, oh, have you been on the computer for, say, 9 hours before? Have you been reading in the dark? They say, oh yeah, you can't read that thing on the wall, we'll give you glasses. And then one
Mm-hmm.
time he forgot his glasses when he was on holiday, and then he didn't need them and he could see perfectly fine. And it's like, by believing that we need something, we look for the answers, and that is for everything: disease,
Mm-hmm.
spiritual sign, tablets,
People.
glasses, food,
Yeah.
It's like I can't give up smoking because it's addictive because it's got nicotine in. So you expect the answers to be, oh, I can't give
Mm.
up. So you don't even bother. I know, for example, I made myself dyslexic because I really wanted to be dyslexic because I wanted to be like Richard Branson because I had so many ideas and nobody would believe in me. I made myself dyslexic by like kind of my brain not being able to read something, and rather than pushing through reading or trying to work out or remember that spelling, I would kind of give up at the point where my muscle in my brain would have built itself to learn that spelling for the next day. Like when you go to the gym, you lift a certain amount of weights and the next day you can lift more. Whereas if you just think, oh, I can't lift it and stop, then you never get any bigger. And and I looked at dyslexic people, how they couldn't read, how they couldn't spell, and I realized if you flip it, you are reading that, and everyone knows you're dyslexic, so they're not saying speed up in the classroom, and they're waiting for you to be patient. You know, let him take his own time. Teachers like helping you out. So if your teacher's helping you, you're not using your own brain. It's like people who get dementia, the partner starts to do things for you, starts to remember things for you. As a result, they are remembering, you're not. So your brain's starting to die. And then what happens is that, oh, he's always forgetting his keys, and then she remembers your keys, and then your brain has got nothing to remember. It's almost like we trap our own selves with the belief that we're already trapped. At the same time, you can get yourself out by believing you were never trapped in the first place. And it's how do you differentiate that? It's like if I told you that disease doesn't exist, you say, "What the fuck do you mean? I've got cancer. I'm going to die." Doctor says. It's like, well, hang on a sec. Doctor says you're going to die. That's because he believes that cancer, you're going to die after 6 months, based on loads of people dying after 6 months, but they only died because they believed they were going to die because you told them they were going to die. And then you've got the other half, which is people just magical healing, don't believe in all this shit, and miracles happen. It's like, how do you reprogram like a 200-year-old belief system that if you have this disease, that is it? Is tricky.
Mm-hmm. And the great thing about what you mentioned about healers, and I'd say like, let's say the spiritual world, is that it's much older, right? We've had medicine, like you said, 200 years. We've been told that it's cancer. And yet, if we look past those 200 years, we have so many resources to work with that truly do make a difference. I mean, I experienced the same thing. Like, so many things come up for me based on just life's experiences. My grandmother had cancer. We literally just recreated her diet and her nutrition, and she ended up passing away from a heart attack. It was like years later, completely separate, nothing that had to do with the cancer. I declared literally my whole life, I didn't feel like my voice resonated with me. I just was like, I want my voice to go to rasp a little bit. I don't know. I just kept saying it, saying it, saying it. I'm like, when I turn 18, my voice is going to change. Like, that's going to be the thing that makes me feel like I'm a woman. Let me tell you how when I turned 18, for no reason at all, I grew like nodules on my vocal cords, and I had to get surgery, and my voice completely changed, and now it's like this, and this is technically what I wanted. And I really truly believe that the same way that we, talk about declaring things that you want externally, you can declare internally 100%. And that is literally the makings of your life. That is creating exactly what it is you want. I just feel like there's too much fear in making that declaration, in being so transparent in what you want, and in standing for it. Because we're talking about standing for yourself over what, let's say, you were made to believe your life should look like. That has a lot to do with the direction we go in, let's say, spirituality, or even in entrepreneurialism. I'd say in this community of people awakening to a different way of living is a lot of, okay, I'm going to let go of everything I believed or was taught that my life should look like, and create the one that I feel most resonates with me. And that could be a scary jump for a lot of people. So I feel like we know we can communicate, we can talk all day about how powerful our words are. And yet what actually gets in our way, I'd say more, is fear.
Yeah, I remember when I was in college once, I said in front of the class, if, for example, I lost my arm in an accident and I had a kid, would he have an arm or not? And they laughed at me. And I didn't word it correctly. What I was saying is that if my body gets used to not having an arm, like a tailbone, we've come from apes, right? We had a tailbone, a tail, which is like a third leg, right? and as we started to evolve and go upwards, take fruit off the trees, we didn't need our tail anymore because we weren't swinging through trees. And over time, you sort of lost our tail. There's no need for it. Our brain didn't trigger the tail muscle, so it was like, well, this doesn't exist anymore. And so when I said to the person in the class, if I lost my leg in an accident, or whatever, would my son have a leg? That was what I was saying. Like, does
Yeah,
your body
evolution.
forget something because it's not being used in terms
Yeah,
of evolution? And yes, if I
yeah.
had a son, I'm pretty sure he'd have a leg, right, or two arms. But over time, probably not, because that's just what evolution is. And I look at a plant
Mhm.
outside, right, and I realise if I kind of put the plant on its side, it starts to bend upwards. So now the plant's like a right angle because it goes towards the
Mhm.
sun. At the same time, if I got string, tied it so it was facing upright, it would also go upright. So man can interfere and get the same results that nature was going to do anyway, right?
Mhm.
Speaking about all this disease stuff or whatever, you can like everything is created by our belief, but it's based on what we already believed in the first place.
Mhm. 100%. So that's the so we can come right back to our shooting star example. Like, what do you believe in, and what do you choose to believe in outside of what is fact? You can truly commit to believing in something that brings you joy, that sparks your imagination, and see it become a reality.
I don't believe anything is a fact because I believe that a fact is what the majority believe and the majority always wins. And it's like, well, where did
Mhm.
that first come from? That's irrelevant because it's the majority, right? And
Mhm.
or it's one person's scientific experiment that he did where he didn't question his own experiment anymore, or no one else found flaws in it, or he was looking for something, found the answer, so he looked no further. So it's
Mhm.
like everything is only fact because you stopped looking. And if you think about like Einstein relatively, wine's good, wine's bad, butter's good, butter's bad, too much fish is good, too much fish is bad, cancer exists, cancer doesn't. Everything is both. It's this and that. It's that until it's proved otherwise, and this until it's proved otherwise. It's life is made up of like, the sperm and the egg. It's not just one. Like my mum, I had a tuna
Mhm.
can. Mum says, "Oh, shouldn't have too much tuna. It's got too much. I don't know. Was it magnesium in or whatever?"
Yeah,
And it's
Mercury.
like, and like you told me, too much tea will give you bowel cancer, and too much red wine's bad for the liver, and then it's all red wine's good. It's like everything is created by man for the purpose of profit. Everything.
Mhm.
Otherwise, we're just an animal migrating, eating the grass, and going to sleep. And that's all there is. And so everything is created by man, and you need that balance in order to profit, because profit is like, I'll give you this, this is better than that, trade this instead of that. You need a reason to trade this instead of that. Otherwise, it's like, well, why can't I go to him? Oh, because this is really shouldn't do this because of this. It's crazy. Everything is created by man. It's like it's crazy, and it's all to do with
Mhm.
profit, just so they can have a leverage over the common working person.
Mhm. And I feel that exactly to that point is where is where one can get stuck when choosing a stand for something, because there are so many, like, yeah, two sides of the same coin. There is always that opponent that makes you feel defeated for standing for one versus the other. So for example, I was an animal rights activist for many years because I love animals. Now the other side of that are people saying, animals don't have feelings. Am I am I a pig? No. So science can tell me, yes, that they have feelings and that they have a mental capacity and all these beautiful things. I can choose to believe it, and yet, just like you just mentioned, they are a bunch of experiments that no one will know unless someone reincarnates from a pig and says so. As and then even then you'd have to believe them. So when you stand for something and you receive that resistance of the other side, of that opponent, it's really comes right back down to your belief and your trust or your desire to believe that makes you not sway. Because in anything in life, there is always that controversial thing, the diet that was great and then the diet that caused blank whatever, like you just mentioned, right? Coffee is good for you and now coffee's bad for you. It's like there are so many things that make it really based on, right back again, that lifestyle you choose to create. Because at the end of the day, as you mentioned, bacteria, we live and then we die. So do I want to fight the opposition for the rest of my life? No. I thought I was going to. I did it for many years as an animal rights activist, and I realized it's exhausting. And you don't really get anywhere because, like you mentioned, people profit. And those people truly make the decisions. So what I can do is create my life the way I want it to be, impact and support others in creating the life they want to live, create a ripple effect where individually we are all standing for the kind of power that we want to experience, and then feel okay with that level of impact. And then I applaud anyone who takes it to another level that makes them take on that opposition and like embody it like a rock star. Because that's also, I really acknowledge how that is also how some change is made. Some great change could be made.
Yeah, I do believe that we dig ourselves a hole just so we have something to do and just so we can get out of it and reward ourselves when we get out of it. It's almost like we purposely put a thorn in our leg so we can feel pain and then spend time trying to remove that pain to balance ourselves up. It's almost like we get into debt just so we can struggle and work and have something to do and have a coffee after work, see your friends after work, go to the gym. Just so we've got something to do, because otherwise there is nothing to do. Because it's the whole point about having a purpose in life. We're just here by luck. So it's like, what do? We could be a little monk in the forest meditating our whole life, or do something. And if you eat food, you're going to want more food. If you smoke, you're going to smoke more. If you do heroin, more heroin. If you fight for causes, you're going to fight for more causes. It's like whatever you give your body as a feeling, it remembers it and wants more. That's why you can't really do anything without overdoing it. And it doesn't matter what it is, sex, it's just everything is always overdone. You have love, you want more love. You have sex, you want more sex. You want a house, you want a bigger house. You have a you know have a cute puppy, you want another cute puppy, and then there's crapping everywhere. So it's like, oh, it wasn't what I thought. What was you gonna saying?
So
It's
would you
huh?
say that, sorry, go ahead.
No, 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 I'm done.
Would you would you say that that comes from how deep our empathy is or how deep our desire for more, the way we've been programmed as a consumerism, based society?
Well, based on, for example, lectins, right? Let's just say I eat a potato and there's lectins in it. I don't even know about lectins, but it's basically like a living thing in a living thing. So when you say eat a bag of crisps, it's not you wanting crisps or the crisps saying give me more crisps. It's the lectins in the crisps saying I want more of those lectins. How do I get that? Get that human to give me Doritos. It's almost like the parasite and the fly. Parasites will get into flies, take control of the brain, so the fly goes to the water, so the parasite can then breed on the water. I don't know if you know about that. So it's almost like whatever we give our body as a feeling, which it didn't have before, our body now wants more of that. So it doesn't matter whether it's coffee, Chinese food, sex, money, our body always going to want more of that. And if you give it more, it's going to want more. And essentially, the only way to counteract it is not to give it in the first place. Because we have come from nothing. It's almost like when you have a fungus on a tree. You put that fungus on a tree, it will just keep growing. It's almost like HIV in a person. You can't get rid of it. You just have to let it do its course. Now you can say medicine can hide it and heal it, whatever, but taking away man, HIV will be in their body forever, right? There's parasites and diseases in our body that we don't really know about because it's just not killing us and it's just there. Things just live amongst things and keep growing, almost like cells just keep dividing. And I do think it's just not that it's capitalism, although you can put things in someone's mind and make them think about it. That is correct. But in terms of a feeling, not a thought, I do think that if you give something, it's going to want more of it because life is about procreating. Every animal mates, fly swarms, they mate and then they die. Fish in the ocean, they release their spawn and then they die. We mate and then we die. It's just like this keep building up of more, like crisps, more Doritos, heroin, more heroin, like sex, more sex. It doesn't end. It's just like everything is supposed to just get bigger, like the sun gets hotter and hotter, and then it explodes, and then there's like the Big Bang, and then it just keeps getting more. Does that answer?
So, yeah, so I feel then that if that is, let's say, something that we would say is part of our, um, yeah, part of our instincts, let's say, then those who are marketing to have us feel, because the way that we consume is not just through thought, it is through feeling. And the depth of marketing acknowledges that, which means that to the degree in which we consume so many things, I believe then, therefore, that marketers know that we are going to want more. And then there are certain ways to cause that trigger, that desire to feel whatever that thing was. And we see so many ads a day that there are so many things that can cause that desire for more subconsciously. So if it was, let's say, something that is programmed, could be programmed outside of ourselves, I would say marketing does that. But if it's within us, it comes up for me as empathy, as you feel, you know that feeling, and you have communicated or experienced that someone else also appreciates that feeling, that cup of coffee after work with that friend, sex with another person, eating your favorite meal that you know is a meal that people would enjoy, that you acknowledge is good, then that empathy that you create based on the experiences you have with others or that you see in others, right? Like that person has a big house, it means they're successful, it means I want a big house. There's still a degree of empathy there, whether it works in our favor or not. So internally, would it be, let's say, a deep instinct within our human experience that causes us to want more? Or is it simply empathy and the knowing of the feeling that we can experience that we see in others that has us act this way? And then therefore that empathy is what marketers say, okay, we're going to work with that because feeling is more powerful as a purchasing power than thought.
It's multi-dimensional. It's a mixture of
Mm-hmm.
everything. It's almost like if you get a McDonald's chip or chicken nugget, if you don't have tomato sauce, it is just the most boring, tasteless piece of shit ever, right? So you're eating it, but it's only like nice because of the ketchup. So it's like there is obviously the stuff in that food which makes you want more. So you could say that's the feeling side to it. And then there's the advert, which is the thought. Now they know every time you think about something, eventually you're gonna do it. But at the same time, if there was no McDonald's on the TV advertising and you just had McDonald's every week, you get used to that feeling and the food in it. And then the lectins in the food want more. So you go to McDonald's and you get that feeling without the thought. So it's almost like companies are just monopolizing, manipulating on how a human works. It's almost like if I plant seeds in the ground with sun and water, it's going to grow. But if I didn't, the chances are the seeds will blow in the wind and create the same thing. So it's almost like if I know the seeds are going to grow there, I'm going to put a flower bed so it grows in a flower bed rather than just wild. It's like they know how a human works.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I'm realizing it's multi-dimensional. It's not just one, it's not just two, it's everything. It's like those thoughts aren't your thoughts. They're not even thoughts of an advert. It's like your friend, if she thinks of you and McDonald's, that is now your thought. So you think to go to McDonald's, but that's based on her thought, which could have been based on an advert she saw, could have been based on her mum mentioning McDonald's. She could have found an old chip down her bed when she was hoovering. So it's like all these thoughts, they're not the company's thoughts, they're not your thoughts, they're not even her thoughts. It's just a thought. It's everything's multidimensional. Um, it's like the biology, the chemistry, and the physical, the physics, the chemistry, and the biology. It's all one. But then it's not just those three. It's it's so much more. It's almost like the thoughts of people thousands of years ago. Their energy is still here. Once you reach that frequency, you're tuning into their thought. So let's go to the beach on a windy day to get fish. Like you're not even a fisherman, but you think, oh, let's go to the beach to get some fish, and then you come back with some crabs. It's like, well, why the fuck would I need to do that? Like, and so it's multidimensional, and that is why it's so. That is why, like you, I see myself as a tree foundation, branches, acorns. The acorns drop and then they create around me causes trying to change the world, vegan movement, every single movement. There's always going to be a movement. There's always going to be shit going on. There's always going to be opposite. This is right, this is wrong. And you can always see it from their point of view. It just so happens that you're on this side of the fence. So if you switch, you're against your own, but you were that. So it's like, well, what's the point in any of it? Because I'm basically shitting on myself. And so it goes back to that thorn in your leg. You're just getting that pain out that you created yourself. So you feel like, oh, I feel heard, I feel free. I saved this dog from being taken to China and killed as for food. But it's almost like you put yourself in that position to see that. So you could get angry, just so you could fight and have something to do and get up for, to hold your sign up. And then you realize, okay, I feel good now that dog was saved, but I'd feel even better as a monk in a forest in nature. So it comes down to creating your own pain to free yourself versus how about I don't put myself in this pain anyway? There's always going to be a cause, always going to be a movement. How about I just focus on myself, like as you said, and do you, help others around you. And if somebody's doing something on a bigger scale, good for you. Well done. I hope that change happens because ultimately it will affect me in a positive way because it just will. And it's actually rare that I speak to someone who thinks about it like that, who knows that, mass awakening, it is happening, but at the same time, it's only because you're focusing on other people on Instagram, mass awakening. Okay. The other 7 billion humans on the planet, what are they doing? They're not awakening, they're just doing what they're doing. So really, it's not a mass awakening. It's just you feeling you are awakening, seeing others around you awakening, wanting to be part of a movement. And it all comes down to, is any movement really that big or big of a deal anyway? Because it's like you're focusing on it, but there's so much other shit going on. And then it
Yeah.
comes down to lots of tribes just trying to interlink and change belief systems. And then you realize, wow, I'm focusing on like these 10 tribes. There's a million tribes, like belief systems, vegan systems, religious systems, different languages. Like, how many countries are there? How many different languages are there? It's fucking overwhelming. And you realize, think about the world's coming to an end. What? It's not coming to an end. It's just, this is what it's always been like. And small tribes, take away TV, take away everything. This has always gone on. Like, it, just look at animals. Okay, a load of buffalo, a load of lions go to the same lake. They have a fight because they want that carcass. It's just like two countries going to war. It's always happened. You're not going to change it. No laws, no governments, no fucking movements. It's just the way it is. But you're focusing on it, and then when you think it's healed, you look away, so you think it's gone. But it's happening. But you just can't see it. You know?
Mhm. Yeah, I feel the only difference now is that we don't have as much control to choose, okay, you and I are going to fight and see who gets the carcass. Like that is something that I don't feel we have the freedom to do anymore. We most definitely live by the laws and regulations and decisions of people in power as much as we want to live our own lives, which is why it's really powerful actually to take that power back and say, I'm going to focus on myself, because if you don't, you will be battling people who will entertain your, let's say, your desire, and yet go back to the plan that they originally had for the bigger scope of humanity. I might stand for example, let's say animal rights. X person stands for, X movement, and our movements contradict each other. Then there's no way that everyone can be happy. And that's where, unfortunately, because we have so many movements, there are so many fights versus people that you shouldn't be fighting. Right? So let's say we're all fighting the man, and then you get in my way, and now we're going to start fighting instead of both of us coming together to fight the man. And so, yes, we're all individual tribes. And I feel that the greatest thing that we can do as we acknowledge our individuality is say that everyone has the right to be in their own space and stand for their own thing and whatever that looks like, and know that when we cross paths, it's to complement as opposed to get in each other's way. And that is where now it feels not the case. There are so many moments where I don't feel like movements support movements, and then therefore it's like one versus the other. And yeah, and that's where it just gets unfortunate, where we do deserve to experience the ripple effect of what change could be like if we choose to, and yet we can only do that as a collective. So no, this awakening is not, as global as maybe someone would like it to be, but it definitely is one of the many movements that deserve to complement each other as we work towards essentially what we all want to experience, which is love, harmony, and bliss. Right? What else do we really want to experience?
I'm really good at tennis, right? And I used to just play tennis. I didn't play to the rules, as in I played to the rules, but I didn't follow the correct footwork, the correct racket work, the correct posture. I
Mhm.
just focused on winning. So I'd slam that ball over the net and I'd win. And then I realized I wasn't playing to the rules of tennis, but I was winning. So if I was in a tournament, I would have won. That's the aim of the tournament. But you have to play to the rules. It's almost like you could do boxing. you have to box in a certain way. You can't just hit him in the back of the head. But the aim is to win. So if you can, say, punch someone in the stomach and win them, even though most people are punching you in the face, you still win. And it's almost like you play to the rules that you are given. If, for
Mhm.
example, we are in a democracy of laws and regulations, and you don't like these laws and regulations, and the only way you change them is to create movements and protest peacefully, then you are following the system of what do we do if you want change. It's almost like if you work for a company and there's harassment, you've got to go through the protocol. So you
Mhm.
tell management, they go head office come down and speak to you, and it has to go through a protocol. That protocol is written by a man, right? It's written by somebody. But really,
Mhm.
at the end of the day, you don't want this to happen. Focus on getting that. If you don't want, for example, these men in the office harassing you because you're a woman, you can either go through the protocol and stay in the office knowing that shit's always going to happen. It's always going to be there. Or leave your job and find somewhere else without this bullshit, right? And so it's
Yeah.
like if you want change, you can either go within, knowing that's ultimately what you want because you feel a connection to something and you don't like what's happening. You can either change within, change your job, right? Or you can do movements. And then, as you said, it only shifts for that moment whilst you're kind of moving it. A movement is only when you're moving it. There's always going to be something else. So it's like, are we really moving anything or just moving something towards something when, as you look at like the Earth and the equator, like a tsunami, when those plates move underwater, other stuff moves, which creates other issues. So the tectonic plates move, it floods the inland and it knocks down all the buildings. So now you need to kind of put society back together. And then after you spent 5 years rebuilding the city, there's a storm. And then all the storm knocks down all of that. And then when that storm's done, there's floods. And then when all those floods, there's a flu. And then when and then when there's all the flu, there's something else. It's like there's always something else. And I
Mhm.
think that the crucial thing is, if following a system, follow the rules. How do you create change, movement, protest? But the reality is, if you want the outcome to be what you want, focus within, change you. And then that's what it comes down to, dependency or independency. Do you try and change everything on the outside or simply change stuff on the inside? And it's say, well, you're selfish, thinking of yourself. Why don't you come and do that? And it's like, well, how do I explain that I'm wise enough to know that you feel like you're moving somewhere, like you've taken that thorn out your leg, but you put that thorn in your leg in the first place? So like, how do you explain like cancer? What the name cancer exists to define the dead cells, but you created all this by lack of sleep, stress, unhappiness, hating the world, holding on to grudges. How
Mhm.
do you explain to people that that is why that existed when you got the doctor saying cancer exists and you're going to die in 6 months? Like, how do you change a narrative? And I do not think that you can. I honestly believe you can only change yourself and change those who want to listen and learn, and just simply change one by one.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, no, 100%. I feel like you can't convince, it's the whole like, take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. There
Yeah,
are so many things that someone can see or experience or witness to show them the experiments of why you can actually cause that within yourself. And yet, if they choose not to believe, they choose not to believe. So there's not a lot that we can do there, but most definitely when like something that was coming up for me as you were speaking that I experienced a lot, like in the entrepreneurial world, is that so people become entrepreneurs because they're like, fuck the system, or I don't want to be, I don't want to have to deal with going to work and all the rules involved in that. Okay, great. So they decide to become an entrepreneur, and then they say, I want freedom and the flexibility to travel and do all these things. Okay, awesome. You want to do those things, fantastic. And then you get into entrepreneurialism and you realize that you still have to pay taxes, that you still have to abide by the city, that if you don't abide by the government, then you can't do something like buy a home. So you pay your taxes, you actually pay more taxes, you work really hard, you still have so many structures that have to be put in place, or else your business will fail. You have to still pretty much do the same thing, except on your own terms, so that you don't have to deal with the shitty bosses, but you just have to be disciplined within yourself. And then the best you can do is actually know the government so well that you'll find ways that you can have it work in your favor. And that is kind of like anything. The more that you learn about something, the more you'll find out where those gaps are for you to get what you'd like. And I feel like, for example, in the case of disease, as you were mentioning, if someone chose to go in deep as opposed to fear cancer and say, I don't even want to say the word because I'm going to die in 6 months, to like totally get clear on all the possibilities involved, do the research, do the homework, adapt, see what it is that you can do in your life to be proactive and find that gap so that you can then create whatever you can through the relationship of whatever this thing is that you're resisting or fearing. You can then create it to then work in your favor. You would then heal. You would find out that there are other ways that you can release the stagnancy that's causing this disease and so on. So, it really, in my opinion, whatever it is you're running from, whatever it is that has you in a situation where you would want to, let's say, recreate your life, it would look like actually getting really close to that thing. Like keep your enemy close saying, like friends close and enemies closer. Get really close with that thing. Figure out all of its moving parts so that you can then go confront it fully equipped in a way that you will win, as opposed to living in fear, living in the scarcity of the impact of what it's going to potentially cause.
It is funny because you go back to, like, say, Jesus and Buddha and all these past great people. They're saying exactly what we're saying now. Essentially, is you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So it's almost like 3,000 years later or whatever, the same rules apply, but yet people still think that it's the opposite, or they can make a change, or they're different. It's like everything repeats itself. Everything. Economies crash, Bitcoin goes up, Bitcoin goes down, there's a storm, then it's sunny. If everything repeats itself, and all these wise people have been saying the same thing, why do people still think that it's different? And the answer is there's too many people on the planet, right? And there's so many belief systems that people follow a belief system to realize that one doesn't work, and then they follow another one and they realize that doesn't work. Eventually you come up to the conclusion that it's not about having a belief system, it's about just essentially being, like, rather than having a belief system. And it's almost like, depending on where you were born on the planet, based on the knowledge that was already there, differentiates how long it takes for you to realize that. For example, if you come from a entrepreneurial, rich, powerful family who know all this stuff, you'll just know it from a young age because you'll see it in your parents. Go out and do something because it's not going to come to you. If you've come from someone who hasn't had much growing up, poverty, whatever, then you're going to see lack of and fear, and you won't do anything. And I don't think that's to do with society. I think that's to do with energy. So all cows will go around cows, all sheep go around sheep, all goats go around goats. Vibrations, low people in vibration, in fear, haven't got any money, whatever, you would say, literally looking for a house, you wouldn't say drive to a house full of rich, hi, how you doing, come over for a barbecue, because that's not your energy. Like, you don't speak to people, you keep yourself to yourself. Whereas if you go past a neighborhood and everyone's in their garden keeping themselves to themselves, then you'd feel, oh, that's more like me. So you go in that village and everyone's on that same vibration, you all think the same, you'll talk the same. So essentially generations just follow that same pattern. And then, as you said, the rich get rich, poor get poorer. It's not created by man, it's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. I do think people blame man and governments and people far too much. There's energy and science it playing its part that you can't even see. Like, the vibrations are moving you towards a certain city and a certain school, whether you choose to go to that one or not. Like, you think you're making that decision because it's better for you, better school, but the energy is going to take you there because it's already made up of that energy in the first place, which is made up of your initial thought and reason why you want to go to that school. It's like when I go back in time and I think, wow, if I gone to that school, what my life would have been like? And then I thought to myself, well, no, because you're always going to go to that school because that was made up of your type of energy. So it was like, no matter what my mum wanted me to go to, I was always kind of destined to go there. Not that there's a God writing everything is written in the stars. It's just, as I said, our unconscious thoughts we think are our own, but they're made up of energy.
Yeah, which is like, I would say, like touching upon the law of attraction, in that you put an energy out and you will attract things that vibrate at the same energy.
Yeah, it's like all the mothers at that school. You want to, say, in the playground, have conversations with mothers on the same page as you. Otherwise, you're just going to be the mother standing there talking to a tree. Like, so you naturally want to be. It's not about the kid really. It's about the mother, and it's about the parties afterwards, and it's the antisocial side to it. It's a combination of everything. But if you want your kid to be in a certain place, that kid is made up of your vibrations. So the mothers of the other kids are going to be the same vibration too. So again, it's not like I'm choosing this because I want to play tennis with all the mothers after work. It's all one energy in the first place.
Got it. Got it.
I've got a question. I've noticed that. Well, hang on, what were we saying? Got it?
Yeah, I said got it.
Oh, but like, what were you thinking? Like, you just acknowledging, or did you think
Yeah,
about
no,
something?
that was a straight acknowledgement. That was like a click, click, click. Yep, got it.
Oh, okay. I've noticed that when you speak, you never say if, but, okay, and pause. So did you do that through training, like self-awareness?
No, I'm just intentional in my speaking. So I feel like I would rather take a moment to think in my head what I'm going to say than say something and have to think out loud and say something like.
But was that from like have you ever said like if, but, okay, paused, or
So what happened was when I was in between. So okay, when I came complete with animal rights and was stepping into everything that makes up my reality now, I was in such breakdown because everything that I knew had pretty much broke me down. Everything that I had committed to for like 5 years made me feel like I was destroyed. And I felt as if I had to recreate and essentially learn how to live in society again. I had, like I mentioned, amongst that in those years, I had lost my voice literally for like a year. I had to get surgery. I was just so traumatized with everything that I had projected through my speech that I took so much time. I literally took a year of ums, pretty much. I took a
Mm,
year of recreating and being so intentional in what I wanted to say, in the words that were going to make up my vocabulary, in who it was that I was becoming from healing in that period of time, that I feel like what it really was, because it wasn't training or anything, but it really was just intention. I was very intentional in getting to know myself and who I wanted to show up as. So now when I speak my truth. There's nothing that's not flowing organically from myself because of how well I know myself. But if I had to say things out loud and I was saying something like, okay, well, um, like that just means that there's emptiness, there's not a present, like I'm not present and connected to what it is that we're talking about enough for words to flow through me.
yeah, it's true. It's like people think about what they're going to say. They filter themselves because of, say, lack of self-belief, or they don't trust what they're going to say. They might get a negative response. They filter, and
Mm-hmm.
that part where you say or whatever, you're trying to choose your words. And it's funny because when I speak, I don't think what I'm going to say. I just flow and I trust that I will make a sentence out of it. Like I want to do stand up, but I don't want to write material because I think you shouldn't have to try and be funny. You either are funny or you're not. And so
Mm-hmm.
just by speaking, I trust that I will make something into something. Like I'll dig myself a hole and I'll get myself out, right?
Mm-hmm.
That to me, that's fun. So I do not need to know what's coming to my brain, even though it's going to be absolutely crazy. Like, oh my Christ, where the fuck did that come from?
Mm-hmm.
I know it will flow. And people say I sound like a book because when I speak, it's like I'm reading a book because I technically am reading a book in my mind. Not that I'm planning what I'm going to say. I just kind of imagine hearing myself on an audiobook or reading to myself. I hear the commas and the full stop and the tone goes up to finish the sentence and it goes down. It's funny because energy is that build up of sounds going up and down. That's what a book is. You listen to an author, they have that range of tone. We're no different, but we fill it with lead nonsense because we don't trust where we're going. So the sentence doesn't make sense. Like if you listen to the average person, write that down and read it back to them.
Mm-hmm.
Got a
Yeah.
fucking clue what the hell were you on about? Like chopping and changing, going left and right down that path. What the hell
Yeah.
are you on about? Right? And that's why it's very important to look at people when you're like speaking to them because you can see if they're following. Hence why I like doing the video because I can see if you're following, and if you're not, I will divert left to get you on board or divert right. And people these days, they are scared to say I don't understand because it's like they feel
Mm-hmm.
like they're the stupid ones by not understanding. And it's like, no, you're not stupid. If I was Indian, you were Chinese, and I'm speaking Indian, and you're Chinese, you're not going to understand me. So that's up to. It's not necessarily you don't understand what I'm saying because you're dumb. I am
Mm-hmm.
just speaking in a way that you do not understand, and that is
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Yeah, and there's really no, and to just another extent of that exactly is that there's really nothing that you don't necessarily understand. There's just a sense there's just topics that you haven't explored. So if you did, confront a situation with curiosity and certainty, so I am certain about the fact that I'm curious and I'm going to play to see what I discover in this space, then there is no, putting myself down for not knowing, for not being prepared, for not understanding, for not having enough, let's say, education on this conversation, because this is the space for curiosity and for play to see where the conversation goes. Like, let's see what I have to say about this, right? And we expect ourselves to know things ahead of time, which is unfortunate because that's just not how, we're not born into this life prepared. So I definitely think that the fear of, like, for example, judgment, as you mentioned, certain things of feeling insecure and just not trusting themselves, one definitely comes from not knowing themselves, comes from not knowing that they do stand in certain regards. So I know that everything I say is still going to be on the side of my way of being and my belief systems that make up who I love myself to be. I'm not going to say something that's going to make me later say, oh my God, why would I say that? Because I wouldn't say anything that's inauthentic with who I am, because I know who I am. But if you don't know who you are, then you can say things that make you say. So for example, in Spanish, we have a saying that's hablas por hablar, like you talk just for the sake of talking, which means that you'll, start a story and spiral and go here and there, and you're just filling empty space. So the true question is, are you okay with silence? Are you comfortable amongst silence? Have you spoken to yourself enough for you to know what you sound like, who you show up as? Because it's within silence that you can have conversations with yourself, where you're going to develop the relationship with yourself to trust who you show up as, the way you would trust someone else to be your friend, be your partner, etc. Right? Except we're our own life partners, and then we don't spend that time with ourselves in silence to get to know ourselves. So I definitely feel that that's a massive component in showing up and being in communication, because that's where you say, oh, well, I mean, I've had enough conversations with myself, regardless of what it's about, for me to know who I am and who I can be, in the presence of somebody else.
Curiosity cured the cat, that saying. Well, that is literally life. When you want something and you get it, you either don't want it or it wasn't what you wanted, so you get someone else. And this is the continuous thing about when you get it, it wasn't what you wanted. So again, as you said at the beginning of the conversation, it's in our head. Like, whether that's a spaceship or a shooting star or a satellite, that's not the point. It's whatever gives you that feeling in that moment. It's like eating, say, a veggie chicken nugget. Now, if you didn't tell me that wasn't chicken, it tastes so like chicken, I would have thought it was a chicken nugget. So you don't need to tell me that it was actually veggie or some vegan shit, because that's not the point. I wanted a chicken nugget. I do not know that that is not a chicken nugget. So I had that fulfilled, that need fulfilled. That's just what came to my mind when you said curiosity. How are you doing for time, by the way?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, let me know when you have to go, because I haven't. I'm good for time. So whenever you get bored, we can stop.
Okay.
I was gonna say. So this thing about silence, right? I went on a date with my twin flame. Like, I've never had a relationship. I knew that person would come in my life. Didn't know when. Like, it was just like another year, another year, another year, 27, 28. When did it come? Then they came. The first date we had, we sat in silence. We sat on the table eating our food. We were holding hands, closing our eyes in silence. And the point was that the silence did the talking. People talk shit for the sake of talking. It's almost like hashtag orcs. It's almost like it's cool not to be. It's almost like it's cool to be awkward, or it's cool to be the first one in the group to say awkward. It's like, hang on a sec, why the fuck is that awkward? Why is that awkward? Like, why can't we just say nothing, right? And then you listen to the content of people. There is no content. It's nonsense. It has no purpose. It's like going to a club and you go on the dance floor and they say, let's have a fag. I'm like, you just had a fag. Like, why are we came here to dance. Why are we going out for a cigarette? It's like they always have to fill it with something where just as it's about to get good, just as we're about just to get in silent and we can enjoy the peace and the birds tweeting, you put the radio on. It's like, why can't you just be silent? And again, that all comes down to meditation. Our brains are filled with everything, energy, sound, and media, and our own thoughts. Because when we think, we charge our own brain up. And it's like no one is used to silence, like that ringing in your ear of just silence. No one's used to that. Even people who meditate aren't really used to that 100% of the time, because they have to live in the modern world and make money and think and shit. But it's something that is so powerful taken for granted, and people, as soon as you get silence, somebody talks.
Mm-hmm.
Just feels like crap.
Yeah. Yeah. And even with meditation, if you're playing like a music in the background, then most of the time you're listening to the music versus sitting in silence. And I think that's fine. I don't think that the purpose of meditation is necessarily to get to that, let's say, yeah, to that utter silence. Meditation is something I feel where you just connect to that relationship with yourself. So for me, for example, when I'm dancing bachata, it's a partner dance. It doesn't matter who I'm dancing with because it's social. You switch partners. There's music blasting, right? Like you're intentionally dancing, and yet if you're comfortable enough with the dance, your body starts to go into autopilot. So when I dance, my body just moves, and I don't necessarily have to choose how I'm going to move, and my mind just disappears. There have been moments where I literally forget who I'm dancing with. Like I'm just so in my connection with self that my body is experiencing something. Someone is in my energy space who's participating in supporting me to release, and then therefore I experience the most stillness ever in any situation. And so I feel like it's really about quieting the mind, because I could be out listening to birds and I'm thinking to myself, oh, I love the birds chirping, right? Or I could be meditating and I could be, saying a mantra. I'm still thinking about something. So what is it in your life that causes you to lose yourself to the point where you would forget who you're standing in front of, or you would be able to go on autopilot in your body? Like that, there are different things for different people. And I feel like those are the moments that you really truly get to experience that bliss in relation to yourself.
Yeah, so the answer to that is our retina. We see light from the outside, but once it goes in our eyes, it reverses, it flips. It's almost like we look out left and right, but when it comes back in, it's right and left. Hence why quantum physics, when you observe it, it collapses it. So whatever, if you're just present and there's no voice thinking, oh, nice birds, you're just looking out. Whereas if you're thinking to yourself in your brain, which is the sound, nice birds, it flips. So you go from the outside to the inside. It's almost like you can't be conscious if you're unconscious, right? It's as simple as that. You're either dreaming or you're not. You're either awake or you're not. Um, I've realized that when I'm truly present and I'm just in that moment, I forget like where we've been. Like I remember going on a walk with my twin flame, right? And we were just walking, and I was so in present, just walking and flowing. I couldn't remember where we came from.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if I'm thinking, and that voice is kind of, I call it the commander. No, not the commander. The commentator is commentating what's happening. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I don't need commentator. I'm fucking at the football match, right? Shut
Mm-hmm.
up. If we have that commentation, we now go in our head, and therefore we are not out our head. It's almost like when you're
Mm-hmm.
driving and you're thinking, you're not concentrating. I
Mm-hmm.
had Tourette's growing up, which is excessive brain activity, until I learned to meditate. And I realized that a lot of the stuff that happened, I made up in my head because that's what the brain activity was. It was just
Mm-hmm.
the twitching was the brain activity charging, and a lot of the stuff that I remembered growing up was just situations I overplayed, made up, and it never actually happened because I was never outside. I was in my head. Simple
Mm-hmm.
stuff like noticing that my neighbour had a conservatory. I was never present long enough to look out to see that because I was always in my head.
Mm-hmm. And I find that now when anytime I'm in my head in pure silence, someone will say to me, "Oh, you look like you're in your head." That
Yes,
happens to me
yes,
nine
yes,
out of
yes. My
10.
dad's like, yeah, exactly. My dad the other day was like, what's going on, mate? What are you thinking about? I said nothing.
Nothing.
I was on a walk, right? And my
Yeah,
face was just, for example, if there's no brain activity, there's no facial expression. It's called a resting bitch face, right? So my
yeah,
face was just like moody and a grump. That's because
yeah,
there's just my face is relaxed, my lips are down, my eyebrows are down, whatever. And he was
yeah,
like, "What a face! Like you look like you're angry." I'm not fucking angry. I'm so peaceful, just present. Like there's no
yeah,
brain activity. And he's like, "What are you thinking about?" Because I'm just there, and I'm
yeah,
like, "Nothing. I don't
yeah.
have to be thinking. For fuck's sake, I'm meditating. Nothing is wrong. There's no problem. I'm not fucking like angry or upset. I am just present. For fuck's sake."
100%. And I feel like that's the funniest, because when I say nothing, Like, okay, so this happens with my partner a lot because typically if like I would assume, I think, and I'm assuming it's coming up, I feel that every time I say, because I'll say no, nothing, but however, I do know that stereotypically a woman will say nothing, and she means, and there is something, but she's just not
Yes.
saying it. But in my case, there's truly nothing.
Yes.
So I'll say nothing, and then I'll notice like I have to shift my energy, the energy in my tone to be like, no, really nothing. Because if I'm in the same stillness and I just say nothing, it'll because I have resting bitch face, it'll seem like I'm hiding something. So I take it to that next level where I say, no, nothing, really. And I have to then become the joy that is represented as I'm okay, right? So I feel like it's interesting when you get to that point because you can operate in life and be joyful and not have all that activity in your mind and yet not have to show up in a facade of what it looks like to be okay, because what it looks like to be okay could also be resting bitch face. We all have it. I try to walk like this and then eventually my like lip starts twitching and it's like, this isn't natural. I can't smile all the time.
No, it's so many amazing things you said. I smile so much that my jaw starts to hurt, right? Secondly, it's true. You have to become aware that they are not as aware as you. So when you say nothing, as you said, women, you say, what's wrong? Nothing. So stereotypically, there is something, but you can't solve a problem. So at that point, you become aware of yourself and the situation from a third perspective. If you don't suddenly start being all positive and saying, let's go for a walk, let's walk the dog, what we're ordering for dinner, to counteract that tone where they're like, oh, okay, nothing's a problem, that they're going to think something's a problem. So we have to then kind of forcefully make up a situation just so they can think, okay, everything's fine. I had the same thing. Unless I then suddenly say, right, what's for dinner? With that tone of voice, because like a dog,
Mm-hmm.
it is listening to the tones that they're going
Mm-hmm.
to think something is wrong. And you can't have them believe something is wrong because then they feel like they have control over your mind and that it's a psychological thing where they feel like they're in control of your emotions because it's you know what I'm trying to say. You have to make them believe that there is nothing wrong, otherwise they feel they have to then do something to make the situation back to normal when there is no problem. And then you are like, can you stop being so fucking cringy and weird? Like, let's just get on with it. And then there's an argument because you've been negative, but it's complicated. But you only learn through wisdom, and that is very fascinating. You said that because that's my life.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, it's all communication, right? So in those moments, do I say, I mean, literally, there's no brain activity. I don't think that I've ever actually said that. I say nothing because nothing is it's nothing. However, communication would cause, and I'm actually super inspired now to have this conversation with him to say, it's in those moments that I literally am thinking of nothing. And I talk about this a lot in terms of being in your feminine energy, being purposeless, being, yes, we're always looking for a purpose, and yet it's being purposeless and just literally having no intention with time, with energy, with thought, that you get to experience your true feminine energy, where you get to flow and be in true freedom outside of anything, right? Because the minute that there's also even just an emotional attachment to something, it becomes intentional and then therefore is masculine. So to be that, let's say black hole of nothingness means nothing. So, but I haven't had that conversation with them. So I feel like in communication, you can say to whoever, I am literally in stillness and I'm good. And moving forward, every time that I actually appreciate the question, like, is everything okay? Because sometimes everything's not okay. And in those moments when it's not okay, I will say, no, actually, this is what I'm thinking about, whether it's about whoever I'm talking to, whether it's about something completely different, whether, whatever it is. However, and in those moments, I'll be in communication. But what I realized to us talking right now is that I'm not in communication when it's truly nothing. I just go back to nothing. I just want to go back to nothing, right? Or I'll start thinking about how, oh, like, am I being like mean or rude or something? So I feel like communication is the quickest way that you can get back to whatever it is that you were doing.
Yeah, it's almost like I feel like I don't have to justify myself. So it's almost like, you okay? Yeah, what are you thinking about? Nothing. So I don't have to justify myself whether I'm thinking or I'm not, and that's where the lack of communication comes in. By communicating, it takes 5 seconds just to be like, when I say nothing, it doesn't mean anything's wrong. I just literally mean nothing. My brain is activities nil, which means there's no facial expression, which means I may look moody, but I'm not. And what's interesting is most people just their whole day, right? When they're with people, when they're by themselves, their brain activity is always five. For me, it's one extreme to another. I'm zero, where I'm literally at the dinner table with my family, saying nothing. I'm just in my own mode, eating and enjoying the moment, nil. And then, like this on a podcast, I'm like, the whole hour. It's like, how can you be that, nothing, to this? And for people who don't know meditation, they can't understand how I can be like one extreme to the other. But that is
Mhm.
what life is. There's no plant and there's a plant. There's no baby and there's a baby. It's just, and I fascinate myself looking at myself from a third perspective. How can you be silent in a group of people when everyone's just talking shit for the sake of it, and then you start performing and being funny and just talking? It's like, how can you be that or that? It's like, I thought he was in a bad mood. I thought he was upset, and now he's like this. It does fascinate me. But yeah,
Mhm.
communication, I've realized you cannot over communicate. You cannot over communicate because
Yeah.
the more you clarify, the clearer it is to the other person.
Yeah. The only thing that gets in our way of communication is ego, is the,
Yes.
I shouldn't have to, or the, like, what, nothing was wrong, or anything. It's always ego, or I don't want to admit I was wrong, like so many things that can spiral from the ego when it comes to communication. So I feel like practicing communication for the sake of, in my opinion, it's like getting complete, not like being able to close whatever chapter of conversation that was, is so worth being in communication, because then you can get complete, you can close that door, you can move on. And if you're not in communication, then that's when things linger, and then you end up just a ball of resentment of things that you wish that you said that you never said.
Yeah, that's the same as a thought will stay in your head until you get it out. A bee in the bonnet. It's gonna be in there until you open the bonnet. I have a saying, I call it algebra. By the way, let me know if you have to go right. I
I
call
have
it
to go in like 4 minutes, 5 minutes.
Okay, I have a thing which I say to my dad, when I say algebra, it means that I'm speaking about something you don't understand. It's like algebra. If you knew algebra, you get what I'm trying to say, you get the equations, but because you don't know it, you're not going to understand. So I'm going to stop this conversation because it's going to go down a dead road. And by me doing that, they think I haven't got an answer, or I'm just not admitting when I'm wrong. And I'm like, hang on a sec, I created this example, which is when I'm speaking about something and you don't get it, I'm stopping because you don't get it. But you think by me saying algebra, it's an excuse because I know that I haven't got an answer and I'm wrong. It's almost like when you say to your partner, nothing. It's almost like a reverse psychology that um, he
Yeah,
thinks, okay,
it
well, she
sounds like
wants me
a
to
cop
think
out.
that, huh?
It sounds like a cop out. It sounds like
Yeah,
like if you had said algebra to me, I'd be like, that's a cop out.
yeah,
Like there is a way to communicate to a level of understanding where both parties are complete. But if you say algebra and they're just like left hanging because they want to get to that, there's a desire to get complete, to be on the same page,
yeah.
then saying algebra is like dropping a bomb and walking away.
Damn right. Let's end it on that. Promote any websites, social medias, and whatever you're doing.
Well, okay, you can find me on Instagram at Goddess Girl Talk. Girl Talk, Goddess Girl Talk is literally the light and the dark of all things that make up who we are. I love that our conversation has been super dynamic in those areas. And yeah, and all things there: business development, business coaching, life, love, greatness, all the things. But nonetheless, thank you so much for this conversation. It's been fantastic. And I'm super excited to, yeah, just continue being in each other's space. Our energies have officially vibrated in the same level at the same time in the same conversation. So I'm excited what this becomes.
Amazing. I'm going to press stop, wait there, and I'll say goodbye, okay?